What's up, everybody, and what's up, Ryan? Thanks for accepting my invitation to be here, and I am excited for this interview. And well, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, Emiliano. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, thanks. The same. I would like to start. Well, if you could first introduce yourself to my audience, please.
Sure. My name is Ryan Mannion. I am currently living in Austin, Texas, in the United States. I am business partners at Bookthinkers with Nick Hutchinson, whom I believe you're familiar with his face. Um, I've spent about 7 years in corporate sales before I decided to partner with Nick at Bookthinkers. And yeah, I think that's a good brief introduction, maybe.
And how was this journey of creating Book Thinkers?
It's it's still I think we're still in kind of like the second or third inning. You know, if there's 9 innings in a baseball game, I think we're in the second or third inning. But it's been a lot of fun, man. Um, Nick is an incredible guy. He's created an awesome brand that now 100,000 people are enjoying. And I just entered into the business about a year ago, consulting him, trying to give him as much value as possible, and really buying into the mission of helping people through books. And so now we're kind of in the midst of building out different products for our audience that hopefully do that.
And how did you met Nick?
So I first met Nick when he was 22 years old and I was 24. And I was up in New Hampshire, um, in the United States, and I met him through a friend, and we planned on going out to the club that night. And when I met Nick, Nick said he was going to stay in and finish reading a book, actually. And so that was kind of my first experience of meeting Nick, and it was also actually my first experience of ever reading a personal development book. Because when he decided to read, Nick's a good-looking kid, and he decided to read instead of go out and meet other single people and have a lot of fun with his friends. It kind of opened my eyes to a new means of developing myself, and then I really started to get into reading.
What was this first book you read?
First book I read.
Or well, I mean, the one that caught you into reading and into personal development.
Yeah, it's a great question. I've actually never been asked that question. So I will say that the first book I ever consumed was through Audible. So for me, I always struggled with reading comprehension. And so that's why I never read a book, because I always found myself going back and having to reread it and reread it and reread it. And I never ended up enjoying it. So I saw Audible as a means of listening, similar to how I would listen to music or a podcast. And from there, I probably listened to about 25 audibles over the course of like 8 to 12 months. And then I started to really apply myself into actually reading books. And now I'm a reader.
Cool. And well, could we talk more about books? I would like to know which is your favorite book or audiobook until now.
Sure. So my favorite book, which is a hard question, man. Favorite book? My favorite book is a book called Living in Flow, The Science of Synchronicity and How Your Choices Shape Your World. And it's by a gentleman named Sky Isaac Nelson. So I'm a big believer in kind of creating your own environment. And I think actually you're doing a lot of that with what you do, because you're promoting more than just books. You're promoting other people. You're promoting a sense of happiness, a sense of stillness, a sense of personal development at a young age. So every little choice has a compounding effect to it, which creates the life that you have. So it's a little bit of science, but it's also, to me, it's like basic building blocks for life, which I really got into it. I found it at an airport too, actually, which is a lot of fun. It's all about kind of how you flow in life. And, if you were to get deeper, it's more about like the energy or like the frequency that you're bringing into a room. And a lot of times, if you bring a good energy, that energy is usually given back to you in return. If you look at it like almost like an apple tree, um, you know the soil or whatever, like the roots, like that's who your core inner being is. And so if you continue to like kind of feed those roots with water and with sunlight and with like clean dirt and with different types of nutrients, then the tree is going to grow and it's going to blossom. And he uses an apple tree as an example. But if usually a tree, it's either like healthy or it's not, you know, like it's either a dying tree or it's a healthy tree. And a lot of that is kind of what you feed yourself to be able to create that healthy tree.
And how do you maintain yourself healthy, but not just healthy physically? I mean, healthy mentally, and yeah, well, mostly mentally. I mean, by reading and keeping, well, becoming better. What's like your routine, if you have one?
I'm really, yeah, I'm really really big into mental health. Like you know, like I could almost break down talking to you about mental health. And I view it as like a key to life. Like if you're not, and there's too many people I think in our communities that aren't really healthy mentally for a variety of kind of constructural reasons as to how uh, you know how corporations work, how you kind of just glide into this life that you know has ups and downs. But I believe happiness is more of like a level playing field where every day you're doing, to your point, certain things in your day so that your happiness stays consistent and it's not this roller coaster that I see a lot of my friends on, as an example. But it's simple things. It's getting sunlight. You know, like sunlight gives you vitamins. It's going to the gym or going for a run because that's a big stress reliever. It's reading books. Like reading books. I used to I was in a sales career where I worked a ton of hours under an intense amount of stress because I led the entire sales unit for a $500 million company at the age of 26. So I was under a lot of stress. And the second I would get into my car and drive home 45 minutes, I was putting an audiobook in 100%. And I would put a hat on. So I'd have my backwards hat and I'd have the audiobook playing. And it was really the only thing in my life that created happiness once I was able to get to the dinner table and to meet with my girlfriend. Because if I didn't do that, then I would just be a ball of stress. So exercise, getting outdoors, reading books for sure. Uh, and then overall, like eating healthy as well. You know, that also eating healthy and sleeping well. People make it more challenging or more complex than it really is. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, we complicate happiness, right? And well,
Also,
now,
also, I would say like another aspect, because I've always like worked a lot and I've always wanted to create like income for myself and for my future family. But I have a life coach, and that life coach has taught me a lot about uh, just kind of also prioritizing your happiness. Because I think when you prioritize your happiness, which could be, it's all these elements, but it's also going out with your friend. And you know, I'm 29, hard to believe, but like I enjoy going out and having a drink with friends and being social. And so, like, whatever makes you happy, consistently prioritizing that happiness, I think, creates wealth in all areas of your life and in every relationship that you have, including your business.
yes, and how did this interest of, well, yeah, psychology came to you?
I just love people, man. So if you look back on my life, I grew up with a single mother. My father passed when I was 7 years old. I have an amazing mother. I had an amazing childhood because of how much she loved us and how much she did like everything she possibly could for us along the way, which was never finances. Like I was kind of on my own financially forever. But you know, like just pushing us to get into the right high school, going to every single sporting event, like just being a part of our lives, created this like intense sense of like love and empathy. And yeah, man, that's something I just carry forward because of that experience.
And how has your journey with education been? Were you good at school when you were on college?
Do you ask this question a lot?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I think I just did with Nick.
Yeah, I'd be curious what kind of responses you get, but I would say I was in like the top 40%. So I was like very average at school. And if you think about college, so I was very shy and kind of respectful throughout high school. Um, and I really like freshman year of college, I started to really, I came to a place where I was either going to be shy and awkward for my entire 4 years, or I was going to be very social and just say basically hello to everybody. And although it was out of my comfort zone, I took that route and it's had enormous dividends in my life. So I was never good. I was never really great. I always got B's and C's and put in like average effort. But I really focused on that time building my social skills, which I think has created everything that, a lot of what I have in life today.
And did you become part of Bookthinkers after college or when you were in college?
No, so Nick started Book Thinkers when I think it was his senior year in college. I just became a part of Book Thinkers about a year ago. So I'm 29 now. So I spent 7 years in sales, made a lot of money, and then realized like this is not fulfilling me. Like money is gives me options, and I'm gonna go take those options and go invest them into things that I'm passionate about. And so that's how Book Thinkers came about.
And what's your function in the company in Bookthinkers now?
So I'm my role is working with future investors, advisors to the company. Like we have a couple really great advisors that are really awesome people that we meet with either on a weekly or kind of like a monthly basis. So I manage a lot of those partnerships, and also we always want to continue to develop a sense of community. So I'm trying to continue to develop that community, and then introduce new products. So we introduced a mobile application, which was about a year effort that culminated this summer. We then introduced, we're doing a lot of authors promotions. So I'm kind of, managing together with Nick that area of the business. I'm also managing the finances. And then, now we're collaborating on a book club, which I think will be probably the coolest thing we've done yet. Nick and I basically go back and forth like, hey, man, are you interested in this? And he's like, no, it doesn't really motivate me. I'm like, all right, I'll take it, and kind of vice versa. So we have very similar skill sets and we kind of just work off each other.
And well, you mentioned promotions, and what advice would you give to anyone on the Bookstagram community to have success promoting, and more importantly, giving value to authors to promote their books?
One thing that we've done in all 4 years is like actually read the books. So I think especially when you're a smaller page and you're really developing a following in a relationship with an author, it's important to actually read the book and then give them as much value as possible. Like life is all about how much value can you provide someone. And when you're providing an immense amount of value, they're going to appreciate that and it may pay dividends in different areas.
All right, and in the part of reaching out to the authors, what would be your advice?
Honestly, we send, I don't know if this is good advice. We send, we have a process for doing it. So we have a process and it starts with like a standard, kind of like a standard blanket direct message to an author. But then then we continue to follow that process by like, okay, now we're gonna send them a picture of their book and say why we think it's valuable for us. So it starts kind of standard and works its way into a very personal process. And usually it takes us like 8 to 10 different kind of um, messages until we actually get a response. And usually they say they want to promote with us. So it's a time consuming exercise. As an example, um, we're on the verge of doing I don't know if you know Rick Ross. He's a famous
Yeah.
rapper from the US. So we're on the verge of doing an in-person podcast with Rick Ross, probably at his, mansion in Atlanta, Georgia. And that is an experience that is just like, one of those once in a lifetime experiences that you have once you're able to really build something. But that's like literally, we'll send him a message, he won't respond, then he will, and then he won't, and then he won't, and then he won't, and then he will, and then he won't, and finally you get him in a place potentially where you may have an opportunity to continue to provide him enough value so that you can uh, provide him, but also the readers, enough value so that you can do a podcast with them.
I would love if you could go deeper into this process with Rick Ross.
We've wanted, so Nick really loves memoirs. Memoir is a type of book, and it just highlights kind of the entire journey of his life. And so we're really into his memoir. And so we just, over the course of probably like 1 year, we kept saying, hey, let us promote your work. And it's been a combination of videos as well as messages sharing why we think his book would be a good fit for our audience, and that we want to provide him as much value as possible in the form of like social awareness and sales and something that's unique to him that there aren't many people I've seen that are actually promoting his book. It's kind of like something behind the scenes, like they're promoting his champagne and his cars and all these different things, but the book is who he is at his core. So like, he wants to share the message of who he is at his core. That's why he wrote the book. So we just try and tap into that as much as we possibly can. And like, we did he responded to us the other day and he said, let's make the podcast happen. And he sent us a million exclamation points, and he said, keep promoting. So that's what we're doing. But it's a balance, right? Because you want to promote it, and we promote it by reading it. So we read the book, and then we basically just shared a bunch of excerpts from his book with the image of the book so that our audience knows what it is, so that they don't get hooked into something they don't like. But he also is able to share those excerpts with his audience that may not know what's in his book. So I don't know, man. It's like, it's a game of persistence, I think.
Which promotion do you think has been the greatest one you have done until now? The one of Rick Ross or another one?
uh, I've just really enjoyed our podcasts. I think some of those podcasts are just the coolest, like most insightful podcasts. Um, the one with Howard Berg. So no one knows. I mean, not many people I think in our community know who Howard Berg is, but he's actually the Guinness World Record holder for speed reading. But he's so much more than that. And so we did like about an hour, probably like an hour and 15 minutes with Howard. And I think if anyone in our reading community were to go to listen to that, he shares a lot of tips on how to retain information while you're reading, which could be really valuable to our community.
How did you reach this man?
It came through someone named Russell Brunson, who is the founder of .com Secrets, who has like a cult like following. Like, people love Russell Brunson's work, and so it's been interesting. Like, somehow through some connection, we got to Russell, and then we talked to Russell, and then Russell said, "Oh my gosh, you really have to meet Howard," and so then we met Howard, And that's kind of how this whole thing works.
Okay, it's about context, right?
Yeah, it's
About people
about
you know.
who you know, not what you know.
Yeah, right. And well, now I would like to talk more about just personal development. And I mean, we have talked already about your favorite book, but I would like to know what is your perspective on.
I first started reading because I had an opportunity to close a deal that was about a $10 million lifetime deal, um, that gave me a pretty good return. So I really got into being in the sales field that I was in. I built out a contract with my employer that rewarded me for the success that I had as well as the failures that I had. So it was kind of all on me to say, if I'm really good, then I can make a lot of money. If I'm not good, then I will drown. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And so, yeah, man, I was in a place where I was about to close a bunch of big deals. And so I said, man, there's experts out there in sales that could really probably help me. And I asked Nick actually for a book recommendation based on my circumstances. And he gave me a book that I attribute 100% to closing my first really large deal. And it's called Sales EQ by Jeb Blunt. It's a really good book if you're in sales.
And well, besides that book, which would you recommend?
Yeah. Um, I would recommend The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. It's a daily passage of Stoic philosophy. And the more that I read that every day, the more that I got centered and kind of grounded in my thoughts. And it alleviated a lot of anxiety and emotion that I didn't need to carry. It's almost like, I don't know if you've gotten too involved in stoicism, but it's almost kind of like surrendering to a lot of like the elements in life. It's not like surrendering, like, go be a part of the herd that, doesn't do anything with their life, or enjoys a different life than what I enjoy. But it's just surrendering like any control and just putting your best foot forward as much as you possibly can. It's kind of what stoicism to me is like. So I would recommend that to anybody because I think it all starts with your mindset. And if you have a healthy mindset, then you're going to do well in life.
Yes, I agree. And I think the last books I have read have been books on Stoic philosophy, and I do agree on what you say. And well, we also talked about mental health. And yesterday I had an interview with Brent Menswar, and we were talking about purpose. So, what's your perspective on choosing a purpose to have something to pursue in life?
Oh
So, does
boy.
that help you to also stay mentally health?
Yeah. I'd be so curious what Brant said. What did Brant say? I
Well,
love Brant, by the way.
yeah. First, we talked about just values, the black sheep values, and then about purpose, that is just a way of living your passion and living your values. So, deliberately living and not just letting life pass through you. That was
Yeah,
like,
so I would say I think purpose is a word that is really good for like 1% of people. So I think I do the opposite. So I think purpose is like awesome once you look, man, if I thought of purpose, if I like really got deep into purpose when I was 23 years old, I probably would have never made money, which would have meant that I would have never really had the opportunity. I mean, it's not totally true, but I would have never really had the opportunity to now work on purpose with book thinkers. So like I think purpose is something that people it's like really awesome and at some point in your life I think you really have to dive deep into that and that's what Brant is kind of doing probably right now. He's like, okay, like, I went through these experiences, these traumas in life. I learned a lot. I'm going to live a life of purpose, and he's going to impact a ton of people by doing that. But I'd argue if you're thinking about purpose when you're young, like, you may get clouded in your head, like thinking like, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And I would say like live healthy, do the right thing, build a network, work hard, build your income because income gives you options. And then once you have these options and you're healthy and happy and you know what really, gives you happiness in life, then start to think about purpose. But until then, and this is just my perspective, man. Like so many people have different perspectives on this, but I see people like my brother as an example. When he starts to think about purpose, he gets stressed and he doesn't do anything. And I've been there too. Like I've been thinking about purpose and I'm like, oh man, my purpose is so big. And then I can't even make any revenue in the business to be able to, stay in this business and ultimately achieve my purpose. So I think it's good. I think it's something to always have in the back of your head. But I think you have to like live your life and put your best foot forward all the time. And then sometime, once you start doing that and you find what makes you happy and what's good and healthy for you, your purpose is going to come out naturally.
Okay, yes, I agree on that perspective. Because just wondering about what's your purpose stops you, right, from taking action.
Exactly. What a great way to summarize my long response.
Again, what's like your perspective, but I mean, in becoming better every day, just to live life and that we enjoy, and that we then find the purpose.
Yeah, I think it's like there's a saying that's do more of what serves you. So if going out with friends serves you, go out, make sure you go out with friends. If going for runs serves you, make sure you go for runs. Like for me, I reflect on a lot of different areas of life that have served me really well. And then to be able to have the discipline to put that back into your life when it's not in your life, I think is really important. So I'll give you a couple examples. the I told you I was 26, 27, and I was sitting at a table of vice presidents for a $500 million company. And my boss was the CEO, and he was also at that table. And at that time of my life, I was meditating and tracking my meditation, and I meditated 165 days that year. So I meditated just over 50% of it. No, it was more than that. It was just over 50% of the year. So if there's 365 days in a year, let's say I meditate 190 days. My math's probably off. But I was in such a place at that time where the vice presidents in the room, which are incredibly successful and wealthy people, we'd be having conversation. They'd be looking at me because they knew that like I was more powerful mentally, and it was kind of like intimidating to them. So they couldn't lie, they couldn't stretch the truth because they knew that I had a way about me where I could express myself in a way where I'm exposing that and driving growth for the company. So, anyways, I was in my most kind of like powerful state when I was meditating a lot. And when you do certain things a lot, and then life takes you on a different journey, you realize like certain things in your past are things that are super beneficial to you, and so you ultimately end up going back to them, hopefully. But if you look back on your past a little bit, there's a lot of things that have been really good to you, and just do more of that and have the discipline to do more of that. So like when I was doing a keto diet, and I felt so good mentally and physically, um, that if you can go back to that and recognize that as something that really worked for you, like it's awesome. I one more example. I recently dated a girl who was a ton of fun, just super fun, fun all the time, fun in every way. Um, but enjoys drinking and enjoys drinking like I don't enjoy drinking that much. And before her, I dated a girl who didn't enjoy drinking. So we only drank like twice a month, and we lived a very healthy life. I had a ton of fun, and I hope this. We'll see if they ever see this video. I don't know. I had a ton of fun with the girl who enjoyed drinking, but I realized in that experience that the life I was living when I wasn't drinking was so much more rewarding for me and for everyone in my life. And so you're going to go through experiences in your life where you're going to find things that work really well for you and things that don't work really well for you, but just to have the ability to go reflect on that and use it to your advantage.
I love this different perspective of personal development where you just find out what works for you, and where you just not stay all the day reading, or I mean not going out because you have to read or something. I like that it's like a more human perspective of it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
And well, just out of curiosity, I don't know if the flag you have behind you has some meaning or something to you, or what does it mean?
Yeah, so I want to disrupt education. I don't think education needs to be this funnel where someone goes to high school, someone goes to college, someone goes to corporate. They hardly make enough money in corporate to ever be able to expand into a different life that's healthier for them. And I want to disrupt that. I want books to be the way people become educated. And if they choose to go to college and they choose to go to college, it's awesome. Like I chose to go to college. I don't regret it at all. It built a lot of social skills for me. But man, books can have the greatest impact in your life. Period. Like I totally believe like books, sunlight, and water and exercise. And so like I just want to disrupt the narrative of what education is. And that's our mission at Book Thinkers is to introduce we got to get a number, but to introduce people to books and get them reading and the right books will change your life.
And so does the skull represent disrupting?
Yeah, so that's a pirate flag.
Yeah.
And I view it as like almost like a British Navy ship or something. And that's like what our healthcare system is. It's a bunch of people who are like not real, like they're just a part of this machine that looks very pretty. And then you've got the pirates who are like you and I and a few other people in this community that are going to go jump on that ship, take over that ship, and that's going to be our ship. And eventually we'll be sailing into the sunset uh, as a couple of pirates.
That's super cool. What would be your personal advice on, I mean, balance in general in life, or in life in general, for your younger self, and in this case, just for me?
Yeah, man. It's funny. I'm giving a lot of advice, and I usually don't like giving advice. I like asking the questions because I like learning about people, and like I've been successful in a lot of areas, but I don't know everything at all. Like I'm totally on a journey, just like you are. But look, man, I would say balance is good always, but depending on what stage of life you're in, like when I was successful in sales, if I had balance, I don't know if I would have been successful. Like I had to put weekends, like every weekend for probably 6 to 12 months of my life, I was working nights and weekends. I don't do that now. I mean, I do sometimes. I haven't done that for most areas of my life, but for those 6 to 12 months of my life when I work nights and weekends, I created everything that I have. Like the opportunity to now live my purpose wouldn't have been there if I didn't work those nights and weekends for 6 to 12 months. So I think balance is good, but I think when you have opportunity in life, you have to really go out and seize that opportunity. So I don't know, man. I think you got to feel yourself out, and yeah, I think you
Yes,
got to always feel yourself.
I just have to figure out what works for me, right?
Exactly. That's what life is. Whatever serves you.
And well, I would like to ask also, what have you learned, discovered, or applied recently that you could share to us? And I mean, it could be on any area, on sales or on, I don't know, personal development or on anything.
So as a business, we want to ultimately partner with a far larger business. And by partnering with a far larger business, we can integrate in together and we can impact way more people across the globe. So this could be Audible, this could be Dropbox. There's opportunities to work with this could be Microsoft. There's opportunities to work with different businesses where Bookthinkers now carries, it's not just 100,000 people, but it's 5 million people who are impacted by the work we're doing. So that has been my mentality and Nick's mentality. But what we realized is when you have that vision, you also have to start somewhere. And so we were putting all these things in place, but we weren't earning any money. And you can't ultimately do that if you can't have a profitable business. Um, so one thing we did is we had a conversation with this guy, Rizwan Virk, who's an awesome author, serial entrepreneur, mentor to a lot of people in the tech space. His book is called Startup Myths and Models, and he works at MIT and has done some work for Stanford as well. So we had a conversation with him, and he said, "You guys are really good at marketing. Authors have always wanted to market their work if it's relevant, like it has to be relevant and it has to be a good book. They've always wanted to market their work on your page. You used to earn money doing that. You're currently struggling to earn money to keep the business alive and well. Why aren't you doing more of that?" And we're like, because we were trying to look at purpose. Like we were trying to create this massive entity that's so purposeful and impactful for so many people that we weren't doing what works that is able to eventually create that purpose. So we started doing authors promotions more, and it's been really healthy for our company. Like now Nick and I are less stressed over, financial aspects. It works really well for the author because if it's a really good book, like they have an opportunity to share it with 100,000 people and build their social awareness. And it works really good for readers because readers can potentially find a book that can impact their life. And so we've started to do more of that. And so that's been a pivot in our business from like, oh my God, let's do this massive thing that impacts so many people to let's just put the right building blocks in place so we can eventually do that. And that's kind of what comes back to me with purpose. It's like purpose is great to be aware of, but there's so much work between the purpose and the reality. So we're working in the reality right now, doing little things like that. I'll add one more thing. So I've always been a big believer, and I think it's because I grew up with a single mother, but I've had so many mentors in my life. And those mentors are the most valuable people or things that I've ever done or had, period. And so I would say to other people, if you keep doing what you're doing as an example, you're going to find mentors in life who really appreciate what you're doing. And as you create clarity around how you're supporting like your community, like mentors are going to be attracted to you. You're going to be the target. And having good mentors in your life by giving them value and having a value exchange, it's going to be the most impactful thing you've ever done. So I've always had really good mentors, and we have really good mentors at Bookthinkers as well.
Could you give me an example of one mentor of Bookthinkers?
Yeah, so every Friday we meet with a gentleman named Kevin Horsley. He's the author of a couple best-selling books. One is called Unlimited Memory, and one is called The Happy Mind. Both are fantastic reads. The Happy Mind is one of my favorite books of all time. And yeah, he meets with us once a week every Friday. I also have my life coach. I also have a business coach, another kind of like personal business coach. And yeah, he gives us, we do a like idea sharing. So it's like, we want to do this. What have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? What about your profit, guys? Are you even a real business? So like, we just have these really, really powerful 1 hour conversations, and we've had them with him for probably like 6 months now. And, that's super helpful. And then, when I was going through a breakup with this most recent girl that I was telling you about, that we just had so much fun all the time. Um, I actually leaned on my mentors for advice in certain areas. So these mentors were always like corporate mentors, but they loved me as a person. I love them as a person. And so like I would not be shy to give them a phone call and say, "Hey man, like this is what I'm struggling with right now." And just be vulnerable and authentic. And they gave me great advice. And you can't take that advice. This is only good advice for certain people. You can't take other people's advice as if like you need to go do that. But to have other people's opinions who have lived certain things that you're going through has been really helpful for me.
I think that last sentence is the perfect definition of a mentor.
Yeah,
And
totally.
well, is there anything else you would like to add?
There's one other thing I did that was really cool in life that's helped me a lot. And again, I'm sharing it from my own personal perspective, for whatever that means. But we created this group, and it was Nick, my partner at Bookthinkers,
Yeah.
and two other kids. And it was a product of the book The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And so we realized that when you do certain things and you build habits, you'll have like that will be a compounding interest in your life that'll provide great dividends down the line. And so we built out this spreadsheet when we were like, I don't know, 23 years old or whatever, 24. We built out this spreadsheet, and it tracked all of our weekly habits. So on the left column, there was habits, like as simple as waking up and drinking 8 ounces of water. And then the other columns were the days of the week. And then on the right, you had how many times you achieved that and what the goal is. And then you have a sidebar for any comments. And we would meet weekly. And we're both still doing it. We have different groups now. But that has been something that has been so impactful for us to be able to build good habits, because we're all holding each other accountable. And we have a phone call at the end of every week that's like an hour and a half long, where everyone shares what they did successfully and what they did unsuccessfully. And it's an opportunity to give them more confidence into what they're doing really well, which people don't get that a lot, right? Like no one's telling you, Emiliano, you're crushing it, man. Like you're interviewing people who are super successful at the age you're at, and taking their advice, and reading, like you're doing all these awesome things. So you don't get like a lot of times that, which is really helpful to your development as a person. But you also don't get the person who's saying, "Hey man, you talk all the time about how the keto diet really impacted your life, but you're not doing it. So why aren't you doing it?" Then you're like, "Oh man, maybe I just need a little bit of accountability to get me to a point where it's a habit and I could just do it consistently." So that is something that if I was any young person, I would try to find 3 to 4 people, even one person in your life, and just, but I would say 3 to 4 is a lot better, and just hold each other accountable to building really good habits. Yeah. So that was something that was super impactful. The mentors, and in your mind, man, just always prioritize your own mental happiness.
And so, well, thanks again for the interview. I enjoyed it, and I like the message of the flag behind you.
Hey, so thanks for listening to the interview. I hope you received value, you learned, and that you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know. You can find me on Instagram as The Reader Lounge or thereaderlounge.podcast. And also, I would encourage you to share this episode to anyone who you think this podcast might be useful for. So, again, thanks for listening to the interview and see you next time. Peace.